Now, to our mates in New Zealand. Of course, Australia and New Zealand have the most obvious connections and are in lockstep on oh so many issues. And you know that for decades there's been a thing called the ANZUS Treaty, the 70th anniversary of which is to be celebrated, I think, this year. This is, put simply, that if someone attacks Australia, the US and New Zealand would step in. If somebody attacked New Zealand, Australia and the US would step in. Sorry, New Zealand and Australia. You get what I'm trying to say. The whole point is that we all take care of each other. This is something that, again, will be celebrated this year, either virtually or in person when, inevitably, the US President or their representative will be here to celebrate this important alliance. It's not going away anywhere. As a result of the closeness between Australia, New Zealand and the United States, we are also in a thing called the Five Eyes program. This is not the official logo, but just a good way of putting it here, which is these five countries all share information. They share intelligence because we're all on the same side going up against the threats, however they have come and gone over the past 70 years. But as you know, the current and greatest threat to the world order right now is China. China desperately wants to remake the world in its image, or at the very least does not want the world to ever call it out for the inconsistencies of the way it actually treats its people versus the way that state media pretends they treat their people. And China loves trying to poke holes in those Five Eyes. Remember, they were able to get military exercises in Canada. The expectation was there that the Canadian government was going to allow Chinese troops to do winter training in that country. Once this was revealed, of course, it was then cancelled, and the propaganda arm of the Chinese government, the Global Times, well, spoke quite nastily about what Canada had done, as it was, again, on the wrong side of the Five Eyes agreement. Then we hear today from the Trade Minister of New Zealand, who, as part of signing up to new arrangements with China, has turned around and said this about their ANZUS partner and their Five Eyes partner, Australia, because, of course, Australia has displeased China for calling out China.
We have free and frank discussions with them, and I guess that honesty and frankness is something that China appreciates. We certainly do from our side. Look, I can't speak for Australia and the way it runs its diplomatic relationships, but clearly, if they were to, follow us and show respect, I guess a little more diplomacy from time to time and be cautious with wording, then they too hopefully could be in a similar situation.
Seriously? How did the Chinese propaganda arm respond to this? Well, guess what? Of course, they said favourably that Kiwis make wise moves with China trade as Aussies watch. There's also another concerning aspect about, again, the partnership that is New Zealand and Australia. We're your mate, not China. But we learn also of recent days that when more than 50 people were arrested in Hong Kong who were essentially pro-democracy, people who wanted to live under the one country, two systems rule, the one that China signed up to, of course, when the lands were handed back in 1997, that when 50 people who would otherwise be refugees that would be welcome in places like the UK or citizens that would be celebrated here, well, what do you think would automatically happen? Well, everyone on the ANZUS Treaty would be on side saying, hang on, there's a problem here. Everyone on the Five Eyes thing would be together. Well, no. Because in the first week of this year, when these arrests were taking place, a joint statement was released by the governments of Australia, the UK, Canada and the United States. But guess what country didn't sign up to calling out China for arresting 50 people in Hong Kong? The ones who were telling us in Australia that we must manage the relationship, which of course is always code for lie back and take it. Yet again, how does the Chinese propaganda arm respond to the New Zealand way of managing the relationship and the Australian way of standing up for the very Western values that the ANZUS Treaty and Five Eyes are supposed to protect on a minute-by-minute, day-by-day, year-by-year basis for the best part of 70 years. Well, here's the propagandist's take. Why New Zealand and Australian relations with China are a case of fire and ice. While Australia's relations between China and New Zealand have been recently hot, China-Australia ties have come to a low ebb in the past year, with political mutual trust repeatedly undermined, not by China, but by the anti-moves of the government headed by the Australian Prime Minister, Scott Morrison. And one other little sign that maybe China has found a way to break the Five Eyes, to get inside the ANZUS deal. New Zealand, not just under this government, but under the previous national government, guess what they signed up to? The entire country signed up to the Belt and Road Initiative. This stuff matters. Now, New Zealand and its Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, are always very strong on talking about things like human rights. If that's the case, how can you cuddle up to a country where, if you believe in the wrong type of God or God at all, not the state, that's enough of a reason to be arrested, to be depersoned? If you believe in the democracy that we practice in all of those 5 countries, be it Canada, the United States, New Zealand or Australia, you are sent to jail. Not with the same legal system that exists in New Zealand, but the one that exists in China, the one where bye-bye is all that is ever known.